Hello, everyone. Today is Tuesday, September 15th, 2020. I don't know why I strung out. I'm looking right up at the calendar. Today is Tuesday, September 15th, 2020. I think there are less than 50 days until the presidential and overall election. We seem to forget that it's an overall election here in the United States. This is the Jim Clyber Show. I am Jim Clyber, obviously. And today I wanted to talk about. First, I wanted to follow up a little bit with the video from yesterday, the audio really, and I also wanted to say that I started to share this more out on Facebook, and I was very grateful for the pleasant responses I got. A lot of people who commented were very excited. Maybe it's just because I hadn't posted in a long time. Maybe it's because they saw the beard and were more excited about the beard and the hair, and maybe they didn't even read the rest of the statement. But I got comments from quite a few people who didn't either listen to the audio or watch the video or just read through the statement and really appreciated me reaching out. So I wanted to say I appreciated them reaching out because it's a two-way street, and gratitude goes both ways. So to follow up from the conversation of yesterday, talking about being kind of a magical thinker or evidence-based thinker or a dreamer or a realist, or when I finished, the title that came to me was Trump and the Power of Positive and Practical Thinking. And I wished I had talked about the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, which I believe was by Norman Vincent Peale. And I believe the premise of the book is that we need to think positively. We need to have hope. We need to have optimism. If we think it, it can happen, which is similar to a book called The Secret, or a movie, I'm not sure. And this idea of, in a way, visualization and maintaining a quote unquote positive state, maintaining confidence, maintaining hope. And by doing that, we can make our dreams happen. Well, over the last year, I've been reading that the book wasn't just a book for Donald Trump. Trump apparently, I think his dad was friends with Norman Vincent Peale and maybe even went to his church. I think Norman Vincent Peale was a pastor, a priest. And so this was, somebody that he knew in his life. I think it was it Norman Vincent Peale was at a wedding of Donald Trump, or even facilitated the wedding. I think he did facilitate one of the weddings. Now I'm not sure, so please go ahead and as with anything I say, please go double check things, because I'm one human being and sometimes I get it wrong. I don't try to, but sometimes I speak about things that I don't have a very strong certainty. And I think it's always a good habit to try to go and double check things we hear if we don't feel confident in them. And even if we do feel confident, to be honest. And so I would say, so Norman Vincent Peale and this idea of the power of positive thinking is something that seemed to have been embedded in Trump's life. And I was reading something by, I think his name was Jared Yates Sexton, a reporter, author, who was talking about the prosperity gospel and this concept and how it seemed to have evolved from some of the power of positive thinking from Vincent Peale, and this idea that exists in a lot of evangelical communities where if one just prays hard enough, then they'll get rich. And then the power of prayer and the power of really focusing on it, and how the very similar idea of just believing it, it will happen. Comes to mind. What was that movie? Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. But this idea of just thinking about something or praying about something or believing in something hard enough will make it happen. And I don't think it's sufficient. Again, I think if someone is too practical and they don't believe in the idea or they don't think it could happen, then it doesn't happen. I believe we do need to think that something can happen for it to happen. But I don't think we can just believe that it's going to happen for it to happen. In other words, I think that we have to have that positive. I like the idea of the positive thinking, having confidence that I could do something, visualizing that I could do something, believing that, for example, believing that people want to watch this podcast or listen to this podcast. If I don't believe that people want to listen to the podcast, then people won't listen to the podcast. I won't share it. I won't record them. I won't do a lot of things. And then I'll say, well, see, I told you. It's like, well, because I didn't believe it, then I didn't do a lot of things. And if I'm talking to somebody, even if I'm doing a lot of things and I talk to somebody, for example, if I share the podcast with some people and I say, oh, yeah, I'm making this little podcast. It's not really a big deal. It's just this thing. Very few people are going to want to listen to it. But if I share this podcast and say, man, I've been yearning to do a podcast like this for years, where I could sit down and take what's going on in the news and reflect on it deeper and try to take not only me, but other people to a place where typical political conversation doesn't go, to a much deeper level, a much more introspective, reflective level. And to do it in 30 minutes to 1 hour episode every day about different topics. So people can tune in when they want and tune out when they want. It's okay. They can only listen to some clips. It's fine. So just the difference in explaining that, and the confidence that we have in ourselves, or the belief that we have in ourselves or in different things, I think is very important. But if I were just telling people, oh my God, there's this amazing podcast where we reflect deeply on the society's ills and struggles, and people go, oh yeah, that's great. Just me telling people about this isn't going to make it happen. I actually have to get the microphone. I have to sit behind the computer. I have to schedule the time. I have to schedule the guests. I have to practice the skills. I have to share it with people because they're just not going to magically find it most of the time. I have to pay for the hosting. I have to do all these different things that that need to happen. But again, those aren't sufficient in themselves. Anyways, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because today is another event from Apple, the computer, phone, I don't even know how to describe them, company anymore. And they have an event today, which typically is shrouded in mystery, where they don't say what they're going to reveal. But something that I think would define Apple and some other companies like Tesla, maybe SpaceX, and is this idea of having a dream about what they're going to build and selling it like a dream. Oh, like the iPad. Oh, it's this revolutionary new device that's going to transform the way that you interact with your world. Whoa, it's a very dreamlike statement. So having that big, lofty statement, but also backed up with practical building, the practical attention to building the laptop. They went to a while ago, they went to a unibody laptop, which was made out of aluminum. So the practical attention to building that aluminum case and the attention that they pay and the quality assurance that they go through over and over again to make sure that their products don't fail physically or digitally. It's that balance. And I think this is why we respect some companies like Apple and Tesla and Amazon, right? Some of these companies that are highly ambitious and want to go after this huge, big goal and sell this big dream, but also back it up with very strong fundamentals, if I'd say. It reminds me of a framework that I used when I worked at this company called Innovatrium, which was a company of a professor at the University of Michigan, business professor, Jeff DeGraff. And Jeff DeGraff was one of the professors that worked together to come up with a framework called the Competing Values Framework. And in the framework, they said there are 4 types of behaviors more so than that people typically fall into. And they called them, red, what was it? Yellow, red, blue, green. Yellow, red, blue, green. And so the yellow was people who are more collaborative. The red was people who are more controlling. The blue was people who are more competitive. And the green was people who are more creative. And so the yellow and the red were internally focused. And then the yellow was more flexibly focused. And then the red was more focused. And the external ones were green and the blue, and green was more flexibly focused, and then blue was the more focused one. And I think I remember Jeff talking about how some of the really good companies are the ones that balance those competing values very well. And it seems that somebody like, Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos seem to be very good at balancing the green, creative, brand new to the world experiences, also with the red, controlling, engineering, making sure that the quality is there. So think about Amazon. Amazon wants to create the largest online store in the world, right? They called it Amazon, I believe, because it was the Amazon, either the river or the rainforest was so large. And so this idea of growing very large. So growing very large, but also doing it by having some of the best robotics and logistics in the world. And so that combination, looking at Apple having beautiful, like going very strong for the aesthetics and these like brand, quote unquote, brand new products to the world. The iPhone, which really revolutionized phones, and even the Apple Watch, which is this incredible smartwatch that seems to be getting better and better. I think today they're going to announce that it has like an oxygen meter in the smartwatch, which I think could be really helpful, especially as we're going through a pandemic where one of the signs is reduce, oxygen levels. So balancing kind of this brand new idea with incredible engineering, incredible supply chain management that doesn't get talked about a lot. That same thing with Tesla. Tesla comes out with this beautiful new car that's electric. People have done electric before, but they didn't do electric like this. The handles, if you touch them, they pop out. So when you look at the car, the handles are sleek on the side of the car. So that kind of that brand new, beautiful look with pretty serious engineering. Same with SpaceX. I'd say even more so for SpaceX, where he's trying to go to Mars. Elon Musk says we're going to go to Mars. And then they build rockets that are able to land themselves. They can go up into space, come back, and they land upright, which is not an easy task, especially landing on a floating platform that is bobbing and waving. So that balance of dreaming and going for something big, being ambitious in a way, but also grounded in the reality to make sure it happens. And maybe that's, another thing I was thinking about is that sometimes we go into these states of very extreme idealism or extreme pessimism and practicality. In other words, being like an extreme yes person or extreme no person. This will happen or this definitely won't happen. I think a lot of times we do that to avoid the messiness of life. That there's something in our life that we may be trying to avoid, some internal conflict, some reality we were afraid to face that we don't want to confront. So this person will never want to get married to me is maybe avoiding the conflict or the confrontation with maybe the person does, and I'm really scared of what that means. Or maybe I say this to myself because I don't know if I want to get married. Or maybe I say this to myself because I think he likes me a lot, but I don't know. And that uncertainty is driving me crazy. So I'm just going to fix some type of certainty. I don't know. It's I think about Trump and handling the coronavirus and how much he didn't seem to handle it at all. And I wonder if that was just a fear of really confronting the reality. It's heavy. It's a heavy reality. The impact on oneself and the nation and the world. It could be a heavy reality. It doesn't have to be, but it's heavy, it's light, it's confusing, it's clarifying, it's a challenge, it's also an opportunity. And how often do we avoid knowing the answer? As much as we say we hate uncertainty, a lot of times we really don't want to hear the words. We would rather avoid the conversation than hear what the other person has to say or hear what's actually happening. Because then when we hear what's actually happening, that means things change. That means for Trump, maybe it means he had to really focus on logistics and medical and building the organization around him. And that's not what he was doing before. Maybe he was just talking on TV and doing the media show. Yeah, it can be hard to hear those truths that we don't want to hear. So maybe easier to tell ourselves lies so that we don't have to hear the truths. Because the truths sometimes have consequences that we don't want. But sometimes we also overestimate the consequences, that they don't always happen the way that we think they will, or don't always lead us into that way. Anyways, I'll let this one sit for a little bit. There's another topic I wanted to talk about, so I'll just let this one percolate a little bit. Again, these podcasts aren't about telling you the truth, or rather the objective reality and truth of the world. It's more about me exploring some of these concepts and hopefully starting a conversation with you. So that means you reaching out to me and having conversation, but also reaching out to your friends and family and even strangers and just reflecting a little more deeply on all these political and technological and societal and cultural issues. I mean, why not? I mean, you don't have to. You can have different conversations. It's up to you. But I know I appreciate conversations like this, and I like when somebody stimulates the conversation, kickstarts it in a way. So, what was the other thing I want to talk about? I wanted to talk about the prevalence of name calling in politics and how I think it does not help us come back together. And in the long term, I don't think it helps people win office and things like this. So in the short term, maybe. So today on one of the TV shows, I believe it was on the network CNBC, this guy, Jim Cramer, he's been on CNBC for a very long time, talking about stock market and trading and things like this. Today, I believe he interviewed Nancy Pelosi, who was the Speaker of the House in the United States, and to her face called her Crazy Nancy. And then I think he backed up a little bit and said, okay, maybe not. No, I have too much respect for the office. I didn't mean to call you that, or something. I didn't hear the actual episode, so I don't want to nail him or her or anything for this. I mean, things happen. But I just want to explore this issue more because I think it comes up a lot. So him calling her Crazy Nancy, which is something that I believe Donald Trump has called her, and I believe many other people have called her, especially from the maybe the Republican Party branch of government and also other people on television who tend to lean towards the Republican Party. So what I don't like about it, and I don't think is very effective about it, is very similar to what I talked about the other day where I mentioned how if I say someone is, let's see, if I say someone is attractive, it doesn't, by saying, hey, you are attractive, I am putting this objective quality to it, that everyone in the world believes that you are attractive. But if I say, I find you attractive, that can soften a little bit, or I feel attracted to you, then it shows my subjective perspective. It doesn't show that the whole world believes this thing. It shows you what I believe about you, or what I'm feeling in relation to you. And I think when we do a lot of this name calling, it's similar, but maybe even to a stronger degree. So, because the thing with the name calling is that it attaches an identity strongly to that person. So if I call you an attractive person, yeah, I think you are attractive. You are an attractive person. You being an attractive person is the adjective on top of the person. But if I attach that attractive adjective to your name, it may further embed into your identity. And so by calling someone Crazy Nancy, it is saying that the world believes that Nancy is crazy. When in reality, I think it means that the person who is saying it believes that Nancy is crazy, and not everyone believes Nancy is crazy. And more than anything, it's not even about believing that she's crazy. It may be, I feel afraid of her. I feel confused when I see her behaviors. I feel maybe disgusted by some of her behaviors. That would be more of the crazy. I feel angry at some of her behaviors. That would be more of the what when I hear somebody say, oh, Crazy Nancy. But it's the same thing. It's not just Crazy Nancy. Gosh, we use so many adjectives to describe people's identities. We call people thugs and deplorables, and they called people cockroaches, and they call people racists, and we call people white supremacists, and we call people stupid, and we call people assholes, and we call people arrogant, and we call people blah, 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 blah. We use so many names. Trump is it's one of Trump's main strategies. At least from what I can tell, it's one of his main communication strategies. And he uses it a lot in electioneering, but also just in his daily political office. He called somebody Lion Ted. So he attached Lion Ted. So he said Ted Cruz was a liar, and everyone knows that he's a liar. But that's not true. It's not true. Everyone doesn't know that. Everyone doesn't believe that. Everyone doesn't have that same feeling towards him. I may in some ways, towards his behaviors, not towards him. And Trump would do this with many other people. Now, again, many of the talk show hosts who are against Trump say similar things towards Trump. They call him some orange thing, call him Cheeto thing, they call him all these different derogatory terms. It's just, there's so much name calling, so much attributing, projecting our feelings into some objective name for the other person. It frustrates me. It frustrates me so much because it doesn't give us, it doesn't let us believe that the other person will change. It locks that identity into that other person and doesn't really give them an out. So, for example, if I say someone is if I'm currently supporting Trump and I say someone is a never Trumper, by saying that someone is a never Trumper, it's part of their identity. And so never Trumper meaning never voting for Trump, always against Trump. And so by being part of that person's identity, if at any moment they want to support Trump, they're not allowed to because their identity is so strongly enmeshed in this concept of being a never Trumper. Other people know them as a never Trumper. They say they're a never Trumper. It can be very difficult to go against that identity. And it's similar when somebody calls someone a Trump supporter. If I call someone a Trump supporter, it's almost like me saying that I believe this person is and will always be a Trump supporter. But if I say someone who currently supports Trump or who supported Trump in the past, that means they can change their behavior. They could not support Trump this time. They could maybe never support Trump again. But it lets them have freedom to change. So often, when we put an identity or a label on ourselves or other people, we lock ourselves into that. And I don't know. I just don't think it's very effective in the long term. In the short term, it can push people away, right? So if somebody calls me attractive and I don't believe it, then I may push that person away. Who are you to say? I don't think I am. And the whole world, so screw you. I'm going to push you away. I don't believe what you're saying. Or same thing. If, you're deplorable. If somebody called me a deplorable person, I would not want to support this person. If that person said they deplore some of my behaviors, yeah, I'd still be probably pissed off, but I don't think I would feel so hurt. It's just, I think sometimes we say these identities and these names for other people when we feel very strong emotions and don't know how to communicate those emotions. So, for example, if I feel really, if I'm driving in traffic and somebody cuts me off and I feel angry at the guy because I probably felt really afraid that I was going to lose my life, then I might call the dude an asshole. Oh, what an asshole. Why'd he cut me off? Because I don't dive into, he's not an asshole. I'm just angry because somebody cut me off. And really, I'm just afraid that somebody cut me off and I'm going to crash. And I became really scared that I was going to lose my life, and my life flashed before my eyes. So it really has nothing to do with the guy. I don't know what the guy was trying. I don't know what his experience was, or maybe he was rushing to the hospital. Maybe he was avoiding another accident. Maybe he doesn't feel much power in his life, and so he finally got a spot where he could feel powerful. I don't know. But I think we can jump quickly to that conclusion. This person is X, when it really has very little to do with that person and more to do with ourselves. And so maybe this is the takeaway message, is that I want to remember when people are calling other people names, that it has little to do with the person that's being called a name and more to do with the person who's giving that name and what that person is feeling, experiencing, believing about the world. So, I don't know. I think a lot of times I try to change the world and change how people are behaving, and sometimes I just want to step back and laugh, and to not take things so seriously. And when I say that, I mean to appreciate and be grateful for how things are, and to not try to change other people, even not try to change myself so much, but to really just, how did I phrase it the other day to myself? Less saving, more loving. Love people a little more for how they are, for how they behave, for how they'll probably, they may always behave. And loving it and appreciating that balance, that we have people who are different. We have beliefs and behaviors and languages and things that are different, and that the ingredients can come together and bring life to a fascinating place. By fascinating, I mean a place that fascinates me. Oh gosh, it is so embedded in language, at least the English language. I'm not sure about the other ones. On that note, I'm going to end the rambling, and I hope that some of this was helpful for you. And AKA, I hope some of this helped you. Gosh, see how even I do this all the time. It's okay. It's okay. I don't have to change it, but it's fun to play with. It's fun to notice and play with some of these things. So, anyways, I appreciate you all for listening live or listening recorded, and hope you appreciated the laughs and some of the somewhat deeper reflections. All right. Until tomorrow, it is, because this is a daily thing. Ciao.